How both Labour and the Conservatives betrayed Britain's daughters. One party looked away, the other party made a bargain. Both share the blame, both should be ashamed. They both knew, and they both covered it up. I'm often asked what role the Conservatives played in covering up the Pakistani rape gangs, and whether they knew what was happening. Oh, 100% they knew. They knew exactly what was happening, and they covered it up as well, just as Labour did. Both helped bury the truth, though for very different reasons. For the Conservatives, it was calculated indifference. The Conservative Party's cover-up of the Pakistani rape gangs stemmed from indifference rather than calculation. Working-class white girls represented constituencies they rarely visited and voters who would never support them. When abuse occurred in towns like Rotherham, Rochdale, Oldham, Huddersfield, it barely registered as anything more than a distant problem affecting people who would never vote Conservative anyway. For the majority of Conservative politicians, the suffering was abstract, something happening to other people's daughters in other people's towns. So they chose the path of least resistance and looked away. Labour. Now, for Labour, it was a dirty bargain. Their motivations run deeper and so much darker. Their power in many affected areas relied on votes from the same networks that enabled the abuse. Protecting victims meant risking their political voter base. They would lose if they spoke out. This wasn't oversight, it was a transaction. Labour politicians justified the systematic sacrifice of working-class white girls with euphemisms about maintaining community relations. But the reality was simpler. They traded silence for votes, the screams of little girls in exchange for sackfuls of postal votes. Politicians across the country knew what was happening. Some benefited, nearly all stayed quiet, and those who spoke out, well, they were immediately punished, weren't they? That calculation persists today with the government. As recently as January, when this scandal broke out on the world stage thanks to Elon Musk, the Prime Minister stood on a platform and dismissed renewed calls for accountability as a far-right bandwagon. His would-be deputy now, Lucy Powell, made reference to it as a dog whistle. You can see what the Labour Party motive was and why they are so desperate to maintain the cover-up. They benefited from their cover-up. So, different motives, but the betrayal was the same. Both parties bear responsibility, but their guilt differs in character and degree. The Conservatives were indifferent. Boris Johnson made reference to it as spaffing money up a wall, investigating these gang rapes. Both ignored victims they never cared about, but Labour was complicit. They actively sacrificed little white girls they claimed to represent from white working class communities. And to this day the cover-up continues. For years this failure allowed predators to operate freely, while ordinary citizens who raised concerns were branded as racist or extremists. Those who spoke out weren't the problem. They were amongst the few willing to confront an uncomfortable truth that the establishment found easier to suppress than address. The pattern continues when, this week, Independent MP Rupert Lowe tabled a motion calling for accountability and justice for the rape gang victims. First it was 11. My last count, only 18 MPs out of more than 600 have signed a simple motion. After decades of cover-ups, inquiries and hollow apologies, barely, 3% of Parliament is willing to publicly support a call for truth. That number tells its own story. Westminster's courage is more than still in hiding. It has none. So, we are left waiting for justice. And until Britain faces this truth honestly, it will remain a country where political convenience determines whose suffering matters. The victims were failed by those who claimed to represent them and ignored by those who never pretended to care. I'll say that again. The victims were failed by those who claimed to represent them and ignored by those who never pretended to care. Most are still waiting for justice that may never come in a nation that still cannot say their names without shame. If you follow my work, I'll be in Rochdale this Saturday. Do come and say hello. For those of you who are new to me, my name is Raja Mia. I am equally hated by Labour Party politicians, Pakistani gangsters and their Islamist bedfellows. I'll leave it to you to decide if I am worth standing alongside.